Hello folks, welcome back to the second quarter of Pigskin Holiday, brought to you by Chicharrones.
Which in translated means chicharrones.
Yeah, and take 3 powdered donuts.
What the hell just happened?
I don't know.
Chicharrones?
Chicharron.
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 We're out of control, folks. Alright, the number of beers are increasing, the stats are staggering, and there's a lot to cover. So let's get right to it here in the second quarter on Pigskin Holiday. How about that, folks? We're going to go through with the weekly leaders in 3 categories. Wow, who can guess those? Quarterbacks, running backs, and receivers. Ready to roll, fellas?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Number 1 quarterback this week, Mr. Joe Flacco, who blazed the Rams.
Wow.
27 of 48 for 389 yards and 3 touches to the same guy.
The same guy.
Yeah.
The guy.
I don't know.
We'll see him
It was
soon.
Smith.
Torrey Smith, right?
152 yards and 3 touchdowns and only 5 receptions.
5 receptions.
Like every
That's
one
right.
of them, all the way down the field.
And you know, we talked about last week how second half. I mean, in the halftime in the locker room, coaches do X's and O's, move things around, come out and implement their game plan and sort of take control of the game. Like some of the close games we saw this year, didn't happen with the Rams. They just they came out flat, and a lot of people left. We could have sat wherever we wanted.
Yep, we almost could have got front row in that sucker.
We had pretty good seats anyway. I mean,
We did.
Upstairs, 50-yard line was good.
Can't beat the 50.
Now, is this a time whenever you have a game like this, and I don't mean to interrupt anything that we have going on, but when you have a game like this, and you have an injury to such a key player like Ron Bartell, cornerback for the Rams, this is, really, this is where you would miss him.
Well,
you know what I mean, this is where...
The problem is the Rams came into the season with only 4 healthy cornerbacks. And only 2 were really able to play.
Yeah.
And 1's hurt. So Flacco and them, they did the film work this week and knew you could torch them.
Well, I mean, you have a cornerback in Bradley Fletcher who's used to covering the slot receiver, but who's now been bumped to covering the second best wide receiver.
Right.
So he's not used to, covering downfield, being in zone as much as the other guys. He's used to just covering that slot, which is generally slants up the middle.
Yep.
Like 5 and outs and stuff like that. So I mean, that makes a huge difference,
Oh, yeah. Whenever you're not in a spot where you're used to playing and you're having to relearn everything that you've learned in the past for where you are used to playing, that takes your mind out of the game. And it's like, it's about 1 step above starting a rookie.
Right.
It really is. And no matter how good you are in a spot, if you get put somewhere else, totally different game.
Yeah, it is. Even at linebacker, weak inside, strong outside, whatever, middle.
Right.
And we've seen some great corners. Rivas, Cromartie, to name a few, that get burned because they're not in the right spot.
Right. Exactly.
Anyway, the Rams never did counter this. We saw a lot of holes. It was like Swiss cheese on the defense. Flacco, I don't even know what his rushing yards were. Do you have that?
No.
I'd like to know that. We said he's going to have some more yards almost than Ray Rice, but he didn't actually.
I think he had more rushing yards than the Rams did.
By the way, Steven Jackson did start but played part-time with Cadillac Williams, who I have no faith in at this point, Cadillac.
No.
And we had Norwood come out a few times. But anyway, not a good showing for the Rams at all. A very terrible 0-3. We'll move on to the next thing. The Ravens, they open up the blitz on Pittsburgh. Then they lose to Tennessee, who passed the ball 42 times and never even got the quarterback sacked. Hasselbeck was safe all day.
Right.
To the Ravens.
Yeah.
Then they come torch us. So I think the Ravens will be fine this year.
I think they will too.
And another thing, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
You said that twice.
I know. But another,
I don't mean to call you a jackass.
I get these thoughts, and I just gotta run with them. You know what I mean? I just gotta run. One thing that we were just talking about, like cornerbacks who switch from being the slot cornerback to the second the second starter. Do you think that like a lot of the Rams' offensive line problems that they've had recently, especially this year, could be the fact that like you have an Adam Goldberg who moved from a guard to a tackle. You have a Jason Brown who went from a left tackle to a right tackle.
I absolutely do.
Yeah, I mean, these are guys who are they're seasoned guys and they know what they're supposed to do and they're good at their respective positions. But you switch them. I mean, it could even take just switching a side, moving from a left tackle to a right tackle, and you have a huge hole in your defense because you don't know you're
It's a
thinking
totally
backwards.
different game.
Yeah.
You're not used to that at all. So you're relearning your entire defensive playbook from scratch.
Right.
And even if you are seasoned, it's going to show.
Yeah.
And it did.
Very much so, unfortunately.
And Bradford can. Usually I'm high on Bradford, plenty of praise, but he didn't really do all that great yesterday either. There also were still some drop passes by Alexander and a few guys. I really miss Amendola very bad. Kendricks. Oh yeah, that dude's been doing. I thought he'd
great
do a
in
lot better than what he
preseason.
is.
Great in preseason. He hasn't done squat.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
Whenever
regular
it
season. When
matters.
it matters, exactly.
Yeah.
But anyway, number 2. Normally number 1, but not this week. 30 of 45, 387 yards, 4 touchdowns, but 4 picks for Tom Brady.
I mean,
more than the whole season last year.
yeah, exactly. I mean, he threw more picks this game than he did in a year, in a full football year. That's freaking insane. Both ways you look at that.
Yeah.
First off, as bad as it hurts me to say it, you have got to praise Buffalo's defense.
Right.
They managed to do what nobody could,
Well,
and that's pick off Brady.
I told you last week that the Patriots look human. They look
Right.
beatable.
Right, but
They got beat this week.
that's true. But, I mean, you
I'm
know...
not saying that high cost did. I'm just saying.
At the same time,
they're
though...
still, it's an NFL football game. Any given Sunday, it's such a cliche, but it's so true.
Yeah.
And, even the Patriots, the mighty Patriots, can
I
be...
mean, at the same
fun.
time, though, you can shut down the run. You can stop the receivers whenever they get the ball. But stopping Tom Brady is an amazing accomplishment. I do not care what team you're on. The Jets, greatest pickoff artists that there are, period, in my opinion. And that's your guys. They couldn't do it to him, but the freaking Bills did.
Yeah.
That says something for them.
And one thing that we were talking about during, in between quarters, you and I were talking about is, like how much more of reaction time does this show the Buffalo defense with, as hard as it is to pick off a rocket Brett Favre pass, to St. Antonio Holmes or somebody else like that who's just an amazing receiver, but you're picking off tips which can go any which way whatsoever, and if you're out of position slightly, but you saw 3 out of the 4, I think 3 out of the 4 were tipped passes that got picked off by the Buffalo defense, who just happened to put themselves in that position.
But not only that, they picked them off and they moved it forward before they got down.
Well, that's my favorite pick, is the pick that gets ran back. The rack. It doesn't just go for all.
Besides the kick return, it's the most exciting play in football.
And the Jets are some of the best. The Chargers at one time were the same.
Yeah.
I think that part of the thing is, you can't completely say they forced Brady into some bad throws. They were tipped, but I was just saying earlier, again during the break, that normally Brady throws very calculated passes in just the right lanes where you can't even get to them. I don't know why yesterday was different, but you got to give Buffalo credit. As a whole team, these guys are for real.
Yeah.
They believe it, and it shows.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, we called it last week, saying that if they could do something this past week, which they did,
and
that'll prove, because this was their real test for them.
And I've always said the biggest downfall of Tom Brady, and this is true, and I freaking hate Tom Brady, but he's always just lights out. He's always lights out. But one thing that I've noticed with him is if he starts off a little bit rocky, or if somebody just if he gets one pick, he gets flustered and he gets frustrated and he forces stuff. He does.
Right.
He gets pissed.
Yeah.
He gets pissed because he's not performing the way that he's used to performing.
Yeah.
Or his guys aren't, or a combination of both.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Well, before we go into the next segment, I do want to mention that the Buffalo Bills set a record this week, an NFL record, for the only team to in consecutive weeks come back from at least 18 points down to win the game. They were down 21-0 to the Patriots, and we thought at the game, watching the score updates, easy game.
Yeah.
And then later on, we saw the update from 31-31. We're like, what?
Yeah. Well, cheers to Buffalo for doing that.
So Buffalo is a great up-and-coming team who believes they can win, and they had to work for it last week,
Oh,
man.
my Lord. Yes,
and they had to work
did.
for it this week. I don't think there's a team in the NFL right now working harder than the Buffalo Bills. And
I
you know
don't think
what?
so either.
And a point was also made today on Bernie Nicholas' show on ESPN that when you're down, you got to fight back.
Yeah.
You got to fight back. The Chiefs have been fighting back. The Colts fought back hardcore yesterday. The Chiefs fought back yesterday. Like I said, the Colts. The Rams did not.
No.
So, folks, you got to fight back. This is the NFL. You're paid to do a job. You cannot give in and throw your hands up. Play the game, 4 quarters, okay?
Right.
Yep.
All right.
You got to give it your all the whole time.
And, you know, I just want to give a big 2 thumbs up to Fred Jackson, who last year took a back seat to C.J. Spiller, which worked out well for C.J. Spiller, but so far this season, Fred Jackson, being his 9th year in the NFL, is actually showing that he still can be a feature back.
Yeah,
that's
awesome.
Fantastic. That is awesome.
Usually backs don't go that long.
No.
Oh, yeah, they have a short lifespan.
Yeah.
On to our next quarterback, who had a great showing for the 3rd consecutive week. 32 of 46 for 378 yards and 2 touchdowns. Not a single pick, Mr. Matt Stafford. Whew.
Detroit!
The Lions and the Bills are right there in the same category.
8 Mile.
The Lions are, I would have first said that Stafford and the Lions had a better chance to have a great year than Buffalo, but right now I can't say that. They're pretty even.
You know, and you just said,
But Detroit's making it look a little easier.
And you just said a second ago, is there a harder working team in the NFL than the Buffalo right now? And I would have to say, if there is, it just could possibly be Detroit.
Well, that's true, but they've made it look a little easier. They haven't had to fight as hard to get it. They've been just taking it from the beginning and holding on to it.
Right.
Buffalo had to come back and get it.
That's true. I mean, Detroit is plowing through people.
He said plow.
I did. But anyway, really, Buffalo has been down by exponential numbers. I mean, huge numbers. And they have not only come back to even it out, but they've come back to win.
They come back with
2
swagger.
times in a row.
Yeah, come back with swagger.
Yeah, I mean, they've got more heart than anybody.
For this week, the Patriots. We said last week, this is a game.
The mighty
It's going to be a test.
Yeah.
Just like the Jets in Oakland.
There's no bigger test than the Patriots.
Exactly.
I really don't think so.
You're not just
On the
playing a good team,
offensive
you're
side.
playing a good coaching staff.
Right. On the defensive side, I don't think there's a bigger test than the Jets.
You know, and maybe that's even like another thing that you could bring up about the Patriots is you hear nothing about like their defense so far, about the fact that their defense is actually letting these points happen with the gaining of Albert Hainsworth.
Right.
So really,
He was out yesterday, by the way.
He was, and so was Chung.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And I think that made a big difference.
It did. It
Chung
really
has
did.
been a monster for him this year.
Well, to keep things moving forward, the Texans, we also said at the first of the year that we thought they might win the division. They are doing pretty well. Even if they lose, they play good.
They do, and that's
They lose.
good.
They lose amazingly.
They lose very well.
They lose amazingly.
Matt Shaw was 22 of 39 for 373 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 1 interception.
Put his big boy pants on before the game.
It was good.
It was.
The Saints are a hard team to beat, though. I mean, sometimes you look at the schedule and you go, damn it, we were doing so good.
Yep.
you know?
And one thing that like we were talking about Ben Tate earlier, like he's 82 yards. He has no touchdowns, but 82 yards on 19 carries. I mean, Ben Tate is really kind of making people in Houston think Arian who, you know?
They do okay without Aaron Foster. I don't know if that injury is lingering or what's going on.
I don't necessarily know that it would go as far as what you just said, but in a way it kind of does. They're two different styles of runner, just like you said earlier. Foster's more of a finesse speed guy,
right?
And Tate's more of a get the hell out of my way.
Yeah, it seems like Foster's like the Darren Sproles with size.
He's a Peterson.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
exactly.
Steven Jackson.
Yeah, and then Ben Tate. Well, Ben Tate is. It seems like Ben Tate's a little bit more finessey than Steven Jackson.
A little,
but he's still
not
just
a lot.
He's like that Cedric Benson, that Thomas Jones, like that, just power.
Benson's in trouble again. 3-game suspension.
Yeah.
By the way, quickly, we mentioned the running back thing, finesse versus power. The Giants have that situation there with Jacobs
Thunder
and Bradshaw.
Yeah.
So they get that going, they're going to be a real treat. Anyway, to close out the quarterbacks, Drew Brees in the same Houston game where the Saints won 40-33. Brees was 31 of 44, 370 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 2 picks. And on that note, we close out the second quarter. It's halftime right here on the Pigskin Holiday. Oink, oink, oink. All right, ready?
Yes.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3. I want to rock your body. till the break of the dawn. Really, 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 really rock your body till the break of the dawn.